As I tell you about my thesis, I'm also going to tell you a story about Betty. Betty is a 72-year-old Englishwoman who has fairly average health. Many of you may have a Betty in your life. It could be a mother, a grandmother, or even a next-door neighbor. As Betty gets older, she's becoming very concerned about her balance. She's really worried about the consequences if she falls. She knows that a third of adults over the age of 65 fall every single year, and this could lead to hospitalization, losing her independence, or being afraid to go out in public. Betty is one of 5,000 study members in the National Survey of Health and Development. These study members were all born in the same week of each other in 1946 and have been followed throughout their entire lives. Their standing balance was assessed in their 50s and twice in their 60s using the standing balance test, where they had to stay in this position for up to 30 seconds. My PhD looks at 3 different stages of these individuals' lives. So first we looked at early life, and we found that those who had higher childhood cognition were more likely to have better balance ability in later life. We also found that those who reached milestones at an average age, so they were able to sit and walk at that average age, were more likely to have better balance than early and late developers. How many of you have heard a young mother boasting about how her baby is a faster developer than others? Well, you can let her know that early development isn't necessarily always an advantage. Next, we looked at adult cognition. In order to successfully balance, our brain needs to combine sensory information. This is things we see, things we sense, and information from our muscles. And what we found is that different types of cognition, and that included attention, memory, processing speed, as well as just general knowledge, were all associated with better balance later in life. And finally, we looked at later life. And as expected, we found that those study members who had better balance were less likely to fall. But what was really interesting is that most fall research looks at those over the age of 65. And we found that patterns of balance in their 50s and early 60s could also predict fall risk. So rather than waiting for older adults like Betty to fall, balance can help us identify who's at risk and help us identify when we can intervene. And by understanding how these different factors across life contribute to balance, we can identify earlier interventions for our aging population. As academics, we're all searching for a little work-life balance. But maybe, like Betty, we start working on our standing balance too.